The hum of the docking bay hit my ears before the airlock even finished cycling. After 8 years away from the fleet, 8 years grounded on the rust-red plains of Mars, trying to forget, I was back. I hadn't wanted to come. Command had insisted. They said I was the only one who could help negotiate with the Valtheri Dominion, the same alien empire we'd barely avoided going to war with a decade ago. The same empire whose most decorated officer, Captain Kale, used to share my bunk. My heart clenched at the thought of her name. Sarah, silver-eyed, proud, unyielding, and impossible to forget. I stepped out onto the gleaming deck of the USS Resolute, feeling the eyes of the crew on me. The ship hadn't changed much. Same clean lines, same hum of plasma conduits, same faint scent of sterilized metal. But the faces had. Young. Fresh. They didn't remember the war. They didn't remember the day the Valtheri almost destroyed Earth, and the human who had stood beside them to stop it. That human was me, and the Valtheri who'd stood beside me was her. Middle, the reunion. The air in the briefing chamber felt charged, like the silence before lightning. At the head of the table stood Admiral Reeves, stoic and cold as ever. Beside him stood the Valtheri envoy delegation, and leading them, of course, was her. Kale. She looked exactly as I remembered, though time had added new scars along her neck and the faint silver of rank along her armor. Valtheri didn't age like humans. 8 years had passed, and she looked untouched by it, ageless, untouchable, until her eyes met mine. For a fraction of a heartbeat, something flickered there, shock, maybe, or pain. But just as quickly, it hardened into that familiar mask of icy composure. Commander Holt, she said flatly. I wasn't told they'd send you. Her voice hit like gravity. The same tone that used to whisper my name in the dark, now sharpened to a blade. Good to see you too, Captain Kale, I said, forcing a smirk that didn't reach my eyes. The Valtheri soldiers behind her shifted. Her crew, her command, the ones who didn't know what she and I had been. The meeting dragged on. Talk of ceasefire patrol zones, joint mining rights, trade reopenings, but I barely heard a word. Every time she spoke, I found myself watching her lips, remembering how they used to curl when she teased me, remembering the night she'd left without a word. When the meeting ended, I stood before the viewport, pretending to study the stars. But really, I was waiting for her to come to me. And she did. Of course she did. You shouldn't have come back, she said softly, standing beside me. The light from the distant nebula turned her silver armor into molten blue. You think I wanted to? I muttered. Command dragged me into this mess. Her jaw tightened. You were always good at being dragged into messes. I turned to face her fully. You're angry. I'm not. You are. Her eyes flashed, a sharp, silver gleam. You think I didn't suffer after you left, human? You think you were the only one who lost something? I blinked, taken aback. You left me, Sarah. You walked out before dawn. No note. No comm, just gone. Her breath caught, but before she could respond, a voice crackled over the comm. Alert! Unidentified vessels inbound. Valtheri design. Shields up. Her expression hardened instantly. Duty took over. And in that instant, we were no longer lovers or ghosts. We were soldiers again. Middle, the battle. The Resolute shuddered as enemy fire slammed into its shields. The traitor Valtheri fleet, rogue elements who opposed peace, had jumped straight into orbit. Plasma flares painted the stars white-hot. Return fire. Admiral Reeves barked. Kale, get your people to defensive positions. I already have, she snapped, her voice sharp with command. Commander Holt on me. I didn't argue. We moved down the corridor side by side, weapons drawn. The deck trembled beneath us as explosions rippled through the hull. For a moment, it was like old times again, fighting together, covering each other's backs. We reached the secondary hangar just as the first wave of enemy boarders breached the bay. Valtheri shock troops, 8 feet tall, armored in obsidian plates, wielding plasma scythes. Syrah charged first, a blur of motion, her blade singing through the air. She cut down one, then another, fluid, deadly, unflinching. The third lunged toward her flank, and I fired, catching it through the chest. She turned briefly, breath ragged, eyes fierce. Still a good shot. You still fight like poetry, I said, panting. Her lip twitched, half a smirk. But then she saw movement behind me. Her eyes widened. Sam. She lunged forward, shoving me down as a plasma bolt tore through the air where my head had been. It struck her instead, glancing, but enough to scorch her shoulder. Syrah, I shouted, catching her before she fell. She gritted her teeth, still breathing. Don't get sentimental on me, human. We fought through the wave together, side by side until the hangar finally fell silent except for the hiss of cooling plasma. The lights flickered back to steady blue. Her armor was scorched. My hands were trembling, and the distance between us felt unbearably small. Middle, the crew and the words that broke her. Later, in the command bay, the Valtheri and human crews gathered, licking their wounds and trying to pretend the tension didn't exist. Someone made a joke, a crude one, about old alliances rekindling. Laughter rippled through the room, and Syrah joined in. She laughed. Right there, in front of everyone, eyes bright with mock amusement, her voice cutting sharper than any blade. She laughed at me before the whole crew. I thought, my chest tightening. Maybe it was to save face. Maybe it was her armor. But it hurt. So I stepped forward, close enough that only she could hear me. And I whispered, soft, raw, barely a breath. I missed you. The laughter died instantly. Her body froze. Her smile faltered. In that silence, every officer pretended not to notice. The hum of the engines filled the void between us. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Then, without another word, she turned and left the room, ending what she couldn't say. Hours later, I found her in the observation deck, staring out at the starfield. The nebula light cast soft silver across her face. You shouldn't have said that, she murmured without turning. Why not? It's true. She inhaled slowly, trembling. Because I didn't want to feel it again. I stepped closer. You think I came back because of duty? They could have sent anyone. But they didn't. They sent me. You know why. Her eyes met mine, wet and burning. Because they knew I'd listen to you. No, I whispered. Because I never stopped loving you. The words hung between us like gravity. She turned fully now, tears tracing silent lines down her cheeks. Do you remember, she said softly, what I told you before I left? You said you couldn't love a human. Her voice broke. I lied. I swallowed hard. Then why did you go? Because loving you would have meant betraying everything I swore to protect. My command. My people. My duty. And now. She looked down, then up again, eyes shimmering. Now, I don't know what's left to protect if not this. Her hand trembled as she reached up, touching my chest plate. One night, she whispered. Just one night, before the fleets part again. I nodded. No words left. The stars outside burned like silent witnesses as we stood there, caught between duty and everything we'd lost. Ending the last transmission. The next morning, the Valtheri fleet departed. The treaty was signed. The war, at least for now, was over. She stood at the edge of the docking ramp, helmet under her arm, expression unreadable. "Goodbye, Commander Holt," she said formally. I forced a smile. "Until next time, Captain Kale." Her lips twitched. "You always were an optimist." The airlock began to close. And just before the seal hissed shut, I heard her voice, soft, almost lost in the static. "I missed you too." The doors sealed. The ship lifted away. And I stood there, watching the stars she vanished into, realizing that for the first time in years, my heart wasn't broken. It was full. Because sometimes, just one whisper across the stars can make the universe feel small again.